Across Australia, almost 3 million people owe $78 billion in student loans. And as cost of living pressures have continued to hit hard, calls for hecs-debt relief have grown louder and louder. Every year, hecs-debts rise with inflation in a process known as indexation. Last year's mammoth slug of 7.1% was the second highest on record. It's left people like teacher Georgina Routley so frustrated by their rising debts that they're reconsidering the value of university.
I know for my teenage children who are starting to think about what careers they might have, university isn't necessarily an option they're considering because they are aware of the debts that they will incur, and it is a disincentive from going down that path.
Now the Education Minister Jason Clare and the government are promising large indexation rises will never happen again. It's accepting a recommendation from a recent wide-ranging review of universities to make HECS simpler and fairer. Indexation will now be calculated on either the Consumer Price Index or the Wage Price Index, whichever is lower, and it'll be backdated to last year to cancel some of the pain from that big rise.
Will mean that their HECS debt is cut. If you've got a HECS debt of, say, $26,000, which is the average across Australia, it means that your HECS debt will be cut by about $1,200. Right across the country, it means that we're wiping about $3 billion of HECS debt for more than 3 million Australians.
Why have you decided to act now?
Well, I think the hike in HECS debt last year hit a lot of Aussies hard, particularly a lot of young Australians, and they've made their voice heard. I heard it, the government heard it, we've listened and we're responding, and that's why we've acted to not just change this but to backdate it and to make sure that we wipe out what happened last year and put in law the things that we need to put in law to make sure that it never happens again.
And the Accord also recommended changes to the way banks consider people's HECS debts and to the timing of indexation. Have you taken a position on those recommendations?
We've written to the banks, we've written to the ABA asking them for advice on that. It's one, as you say, of a bunch of recommendations in the Accord, about 47 recommendations all up. It's a big report. And it sets out a plan for how we reform higher education for the next decade and beyond. It's bigger than one budget, but we've got to start the work right now, and you'll see the first stage of our response to the Accord in the budget on budget night.
The government's HECS changes will require legislation to become law.